Srimate Bhakti Swami Iti Namine Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Iti Namaste Saraswati
Shall I speak now or shall we continue chanting?
No, it's up to you.
Can
Want to
we?
sing Jai Radha Mala?
Okay.
Kunja Vihari
Today we're...
Just make it introduction.
You want to make an introduction?
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to our place. It's a very, very, very special day. It's very auspicious. And we have a very mixed gathering here today. Some of my friends, some of my students, some of my old friends who don't know anything about Krishna consciousness, and some who know quite a bit about it. We have a very diverse audience, but I'll actually leave for our guest speaker to discuss what this day is, what the event is all about. But first I'd like to introduce the guest speaker. His name is His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu, and he has been a member of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as ISKCON, or commonly known as the Hare Krishna movement. For the past more than 30 years, Prabhu, correct me please if I have
40.
40 years. He is a very, very senior disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. You can see his picture right here. He is the one who started the Hare Krishna movement coming to the West from India in the year 1966. And this year is also very important because we are celebrating the 50th golden anniversary of the incorporation of ISKCON. And half of the people here are actually members of that organization. And Prabhu is a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and we are taking guidance from him. He is a great scholar in Sanskrit, and he received his master's from the University of Washington. And he is a master on Indian scriptures. Excellent translator. I can go on and on, but we won't have time for the class then because I have so much to speak about him. And we are very, very honored to have him here. Not only here, not only him, but I'm actually very delighted to have my very, very close friend who is married to him, and she's very shy. She's in the background, so I'd like to acknowledge her too. That's Srimurti, Grace Srimurti. And she's my sister.
My sister.
Well, that'll change our relationship. She can only be one of our sisters. And so typically both of them live in India, in a very holy place, one of the holiest places in India, known as Vrindavan. That place is famous for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Krishna in the Vaishnava tradition, and his consort, Mother Radharani. So they live there for a good part of the year. In the summer, they actually come and travel in the Western world. So we are very honored that for a few months, Prabhu and his wife would be with us, touring US. So the moment I came to know that he's coming to Los Angeles, I immediately wrote to him and I told him, you have to do a program for us a month in advance. So I didn't give him a choice actually, I just told him you have to do a program with us. And the timing was very opportune because yesterday we celebrated a very major festival in the Hare Krishna movement, which is celebrating the appearance day of one of the forms of Krishna. And Krishna is known as God, or rather God is known as Krishna in the Vaishnava tradition. And these are the forms, and Prabhu will actually talk about the story. This particular form is manifested very uniquely, half man and half lion. And we have the deities. We are very, very honored to have the deities visiting us. These are the deities belonging to our very close friends, His Grace Raghavananda Prabhu and his wife, Bhaktiras. They couldn't be here because they have very little kids. So we're just very honored to look after them for about 2 days. And then we have one of the most adorable forms of Lord Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Nrsimha in the back, and that belongs to Srimurti and Mukunda Datta Prabhu also. We're very honored to have these three wonderful guests visiting us. And we are actually celebrating their day, which was yesterday. The appearance day was yesterday, and we had a huge festival at the temple. So the timing is perfect. As I mentioned to all of my students particularly, it's very important you attend this. It's a very auspicious festival, and typically this form is prayed to for protection. So we particularly pray to this form of Krishna for protection from material distractions, and of course protection in our spiritual life, so we may progress further in our spiritual life. So there is a very fascinating story behind this form, half man and half lion, and that is exactly what our guest speaker is going to discuss today, going into the story and also the philosophical aspect of the whole level of protection, how God comes and protects his devotees. So the format of the program is, I won't speak longer than this. Prabhu will speak for about 30-35 minutes, enlightening us with the story, and then we'll have an open question and answer session. He'll be taking questions from all of us, whatever questions you have in spiritual life, in material life, student life, whatever question you have, and he'll be answering all those questions. And towards the end, at about 8:20 or so, we will hold a small arti, very brief arti for Lord Narasimhadev. We'll sing the prayers for Lord Narasimhadev, and after that we'll have a big sumptuous Indian dinner. So that'll be around 8:30ish or so. So without further ado, we're very, very blessed. If we can all please acknowledge His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu by saying Hari Bol. I have two more things to say before Prabhu gives the class. First is, can we please request all of you to move forward just a bit, because some people still have to come and they may come from the back. So if you don't mind, please moving forward. We have a lot of room. And my second humble request is, please switch off your cell phones or put them on the vibrate mode, because it can be pretty distracting when the class is going on. Thank you so much.
Depending on the ringtone.
Depending on the ringtone too, yes. Thank you.
Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I will try to say something about the significance of Narasimha Chaturdashi. We call Narasimha Chaturdashi the 14th of Narasimha. Narasimha. Nara means person, human being. Singha means lion. And there's a long story as to why the Supreme Lord took this particular form. Half man, half lion form, sort of. Long, long ago, many thousands of years ago, there was a great demon. His name was Hiranyakashipu. Anybody knows what Hiranya means?
Gold.
And Kashipu? So he was interested in these things, you can understand. He was hardened materialist. And he was causing disturbances because actually his program was to become immortal. And he not only wanted to become immortal, he wanted to have dominion over everything and everyone. And he started executing severe austerities and penances. It's called tapas. Tapas means to burn. You don't get anything in life unless you burn a little bit. So he knew this, and just as we execute austerities to get what we want, he was also executing austerities to get what he wanted. And he actually got some mystic perfections, and he was able to extend his lifespan, and he got tremendous power, and he actually subjugated the whole universe, it said. Even the great demigods who were the subtle controlling agents behind material nature, they were actually at his beck and call. They were dominated by him, and they had to do whatever he said. So everybody was suffering under his intense exploitation. So all the devatas, or the demigods, they got together and they went to the supreme creator of this world. The supreme creator of this world is called Brahma. Not actually the creator, but he's more like the engineer of this world. And he said, okay, I'll have a few words with him. So Lord Brahma went to see Hiranyakashipu, got him out of his meditation and said, what exactly are you doing this for? Well, what is it do you want? And he said, there's a whole list I have. He said, I want to not be killed by any creature that you have made. So if you ask the Creator that anything you've made should not kill me, you pretty much have all your bases covered. So he thought. So then he said, okay, no problem, I can do that. He said, I don't want to be killed by any man or any animal. No problem, you can have that. I don't want to be killed in the day nor in the night. And I don't want to be killed inside nor outside. I don't want to be killed by any weapon, by any animal, by any human, by any snakes, by any demigods, anything like this. And I want to have full power over everyone and everything in all the universes. This was his project. Basically, he wanted to be eternal. And he said that as well. He said, eternity, I don't know, but at least all these other things I can help you with. So he actually gave him that benediction. And as I said, the demigods, they were really feeling the pressure of Hiranyakashipu. Just like sometimes when a person becomes too domineering, we also feel uncomfortable in this world. So Hiranyakashipu was actually doing this. And they went to, after some time, it was too much, even for Lord Brahma. Because Hiranyakashipu was an avowed enemy of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. And his brother had been killed. His brother was also a great demon. His name was Hiranyaksha. What Hiranya means? You remember. And Aksha means?
Eyes.
Not glasses. Eyes. So he's got his eyes on the money. That's his brother. So his brother was actually killed by Vishnu, and Hiranyakashipu had held a grudge ever since that time. And he was an avowed enemy of Lord Vishnu. So he was not allowing anybody to speak of Lord Vishnu, no worship of Vishnu, he didn't want to hear anything of Vishnu. And he was trying to dominate even Lord Vishnu, but he wasn't having much success. So he had a son. His son's name was Prahlada. What does Prahlada mean? Anybody know? We know what Hlada means.
Joy.
And Prahlad means he gives joy to others. So his son was very saintly. And his son also happened to be a devotee. There's a reason for this. When Hiranyakashipu was executing his austerities in order to get all of his powers, his wife was unprotected. So she went to the ashram of one great sage named Narad Muni. And Narad Muni gave her some place to stay in the ashram, and he protected her. Because the devas, the demigods and the demons, they're always fighting one another. The good people and the bad people, they're always fighting one another. So the devatas thought that maybe this Hiranyakashipu's son will also grow up to be a demon. We should make sure that we kill him as soon as he's born, so that he can't disturb the universe. So Narad Muni said, no, you can't do that. I'm going to protect this boy. He's special. So he kept him in his ashram. And for some time, at least for 9 months, while Prahlad was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu is his mother? So then he was hearing from Narad Muni every day instructions in spiritual life and how to worship Lord Vishnu and how to practice bhakti yoga. And he was becoming very enlivened in the womb. Raise your hand if you remember when you were in your mother's womb. No, we don't. There's a reason we don't remember why our mother's womb. Can you guess why that is? Around 1980, I was in a serious auto accident, and fortunately I wasn't seriously injured, but I cannot remember anything about it because it was traumatic. So birth is also like that. Death is also like that. We forget everything. Even in life, sometimes we have to go through circumstances that are traumatic that, we wish we could forget them. But this is the nature of birth. So Prahlad was in the womb, and he was receiving instructions from Narad Muni. Because he was a special soul, he actually was very joyful about this, because he recognized, here I am, I'm packed up in this little bag inside of it, it's too hot in here, and when am I going to get out? And like this. He realized that I'm suffering. And he was therefore very, very, very receptive to what Narad Muni had to teach. Sometimes we have to suffer a little bit before we listen. So Prahlad Maharaj was actually listening avidly, and he was making spiritual advancement just by hearing through his mother's womb. She was receiving instructions from Narad Muni. He was hearing everything. So Prahlad Maharaj was actually a great saint, and when he took birth, he became a devotee naturally. So Hiranyakashipu was observing that Prahlad is this very special boy. He was attached to his son. But the teachers were very frustrated because they're trying to teach him about things like economics and politics and how to get ahead in life and how to get Hiranya and Kashipu and all these other things. But Prahlad was not interested in dividing people. He was not interested in exploiting people. He was not so interested in money. He was not so interested in sense gratification. Instead, he was a saintly person. He's thinking, how can I think for the welfare of all living beings in this world? That was his meditation. Swasti astu vishvasya. That was his goal in life. So his teachers were a little bit frustrated, and one day Hiranyakashipu saw that his son is more inclined towards Vishnu, who is his arch enemy. So he said, well, what are you teaching this boy? It's not right. He says Vishnu is our enemy, and this boy is only talking about Vishnu. So they said, well, we don't know where he's getting it from, but it's not coming from us. After that, Hiranyakashipu entrusted his son to his own guru, Shukracharya, whom he was sure was going to impart to him a secular education. So they did that, and even Shukracharya was frustrated because Prahlad was not taking to his materialistic instructions. So one day, Hiranyakashipu asked his son, what is the best thing that you've learned in school? And Prahlad Maharaj told his father, the best thing that I have found is that one can constantly hear about the Supreme Lord. He can constantly glorify the Supreme Lord. He can thereby remember the Supreme Lord. He can bow down to the Supreme Lord. He can worship the Supreme Lord. He He can become the friend of the Supreme Lord. He can surrender everything to the Supreme Lord in this way. He outlined 9 different ways that a person can become absorbed in God as a human being. And Hiranyakashipu was flabbergasted. He said, I can't believe this. He became so enraged at his son that he was prepared to kill his son on the spot. He said, you take this boy away and just get rid of him. He's an enemy. So Hiranyakashipu actually started to talk about child abuse. He was actually trying to kill his son. He told them, you throw him in a pit of snakes. When they did that, what happened? Anybody know? Huh? Nothing happened. Nothing happened because Lord Vishnu protected him. He tried to throw a mountain on top of his son. It didn't work also. Anybody here from Andhra Pradesh? Raise your hand if you're... Okay, so you know. Simhachalam, they say that place is where he did this. So he did this, and he tried to trample him with elephants. He tried so many ways, but somehow he couldn't kill this boy. He was always protected by Lord Vishnu. So finally, he just couldn't take it any longer. So he called Prahlad to his home, and he said, Prahlad, you tell me, what power, where are you getting this power that nothing phases you? I have conquered all the gods in heaven. I've conquered everyone on earth. Everyone fears me. Nobody can oppose me. But I have no influence over you. So where are you getting your power from? What did Prahlad tell his father? He said, Father, I'm getting my power from the same place that you're getting your power. From Lord Vishnu. Hiranyakashipu was absolutely livid at this point. And he said, what is this Lord Vishnu? He said, he's all-pervading. All-pervading. Okay, is he in this pillar? And he hits the pillar as hard as he can. Then the pillar opened up of its own accord, and out came this fantastic creature, whose Murti forms we see here, on the 3 in front. Narasimha, Narahari. Half man, half lion. And at first, Hiranyakashipu was astonished. He didn't know what this thing was, but he could intuit that this thing is meant for my hand. So he started trying to fight with Lord Narasimhadev, and he didn't get very far with that. Lord Narasimhadev easily dispatched him. He had his benedictions intact because he was not killed inside the palace nor outside the palace. He was killed in the doorway of the palace. And he was not killed in the day nor in the night. He was killed at dusk. And he was not killed by any creature of Lord Brahma. He was not killed in all these different ways. He was not killed by any weapon. He was killed by the nails of the Lord, Naka, Narasimha Naka. And in this way, all of his benedictions were intact, and yet he was destroyed by the grace of Lord Vishnu. Because in fact, as we hear from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chatushkratam. His purpose in coming to this material world, age after age after age, is to protect the devotees. Prahlad was a great devotee, and he required protection because his father was prepared to kill him. And Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkratam. Sometimes in order to protect the devotees, you have to destroy the demons. So this is what Narasimhadev did to Hiranyakashipu. He took his nails and he ripped him open, ripped him in half like that, and killed him on the spot. So Prahlad was delivered, and all the devatas, they all came, and they were all bowing down to the Lord, who is in a very, very angry mood, because not only did Narasimhadev dispatch Hiranyakashipu, but all of his followers, all of his army, everybody, he was just vanquishing the demons left, right, and center. So all these devatas, they're offering prayers, and even Lakshmi Devi, who is the wife of Lord Vishnu, the consort of Lord Narasimhadev, she was afraid because she had never seen her husband in this mood before. So at that point, Lord Brahma told Prahlad, you should go and you should offer prayers to pacify Lord Narasimhadev, because he came here only to protect you. So Prahlad, he was a 5-year-old boy in front of Brahma, in front of Lord Shiva, Narad Muni, all these great sages and demigods. 5-year-old boy, what can he say? But Prahlad Maharaj came and he offered his humble prayers, and they're very, very beautiful prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So many nice things he says. His realizations were very deep because he was in effect, you can say he was a disciple of Narad Muni. Whatever Narad had taught his mother, he had heard it in the womb and he retained it. So Prahlad Maharaj, in this way, he was delivered and Hiranyakashipu was dispatched. It actually goes back further than that, because some people hearing this story, they might consider that the Supreme Lord takes sides. Actually, all of us are the sons or daughters of the Supreme Lord, and he loves everyone. He does not partial to anyone. But the way that we reciprocate with the Lord, the way that we interact with the Lord, that is going to determine the reciprocation that we get from him. So those who are approaching him as if he is the enemy, then he behaves as an enemy. For those who are approaching him as if he's their beloved, then he reciprocates in that way. So actually Hiranyakashipu and even his brother Hiranyaksha, they weren't really demons. There's a backstory to this. Long before they took birth as these great demoniac kings, they were actually great devotees of Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world, in the spiritual realm. They were his gatekeepers. But one day some great sages who happened to take the form of small children, they're called Sanakadi Kumaras, they came to the gate of Vaikuntha and they wanted to go inside and see Lord Vishnu. And the gatekeeper said, no, you're just children, we can't take you seriously. Because they appeared like children. Does anyone know this story, why the Kumaras appeared like children? They saw, they were intelligent sages, and they saw when people become mature, their minds go crazy and their bodies go crazy with sex desire. And we don't want to be distracted like that. We want to stay focused on Narayana, the Supreme Lord. So please give us the benediction that we can stay in these infant forms. We will not be bothered. So they were 5 years old, children, and they came to the gates of Vaikuntha, but because they appeared to be 5 years old children, they didn't take them seriously, because we don't take 5 years old children very seriously, everything that they say or do. So the Jaya
Jai, they were actually cursed that into the material world. And Lord Vishnu gave them the option, okay, you can take either 100 births as devotees, or you can take 3 births only as demons. And they said, well, if we take only 3 births, then we can come back sooner. So we'll be demons for 3 births, but you have to let us back after that. You see? So the first birth was Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, these two Jai Vijaya, the 2 doorkeepers. Then later on again, they took birth in Ram Leela. The Lord has another incarnation of Lord Ram, famous Ramayana, some of you have heard. And in Ram Leela, they took birth as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. And in Krishna Leela also, during Krishna's pastime, when the Lord appeared as Krishna, then they came back in that incarnation as well. And there they opposed the Lord as Shishupal and Dantavakra. In each of these incarnations, they were killed by the Lord, and when killed by the Lord, they got either liberation or they got fabulous benedictions from the Lord. So it's actually just a pastime. And Hiranyakashipu was, at this point, he was not done yet. That was his first birth. Then later on, he had to take birth as Ravana, and then later on after that, Shishupal. And then he went back to resume his position as Jai Vijay in the spiritual world. But actually, anytime we go into the big temples of Lord Vishnu, we find on one side is Jai, on the other side is Vijay. They're still guarding his door, even to this day, and even in this world, they're still there. So this is Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, their first reincarnation as a part of this curse. But it is proof of the statement that Krishna makes in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutthana dharmasya tadatmanam srijami aham. Whenever there's some discrepancy in the execution of religious principles in this world, then I will rectify the situation. Either I'll come myself or I'll send some representative, but somehow or other it will be taken care of, because Vishnu is the maintainer. And to maintain things is a lot more difficult. We may have experience. To create something is not so hard. To destroy something is certainly very easy. But to maintain something is not so easy. That's why he's married to Lakshmi. You need money to maintain yourself, right? So he's called Shripati for that reason. He's the Lord of Lakshmi. Anyway, this is Lord Vishnu's Leela, or as we said, Krishna's Leela. He expands in so many different forms like this, age after age after age. But he's actually coming only to look after us, because he has nothing to do. According to Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Shruti Mantra, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. That the Supreme Lord actually has no responsibility, he has no obligation, and he has no necessity to do anything. Because everything that he wants is automatically fulfilled by his own potencies. Would that we would be in that position. You see? One of the things that Hiranyakashipu had asked for was that he gets the 8 mystic benedictions, 8 ashta yogic siddhis. Anybody know what these are? You can become smaller than the smallest thing, just like we like to invent little cameras that can go everywhere, nanotechnology, right? Smaller than the smallest, because it's cool. You can do all sorts of things if you're very, very small, that you can't do otherwise, because of the limitations of this big, gross body that we're in. So that's called Anima Siddhi. Laghima Siddhi, on the other hand, means you become light as a feather. So what happens then? If you're as light as a feather, think about it. What can you do? You can just jump somewhere and the wind will carry you to New York if you want. You see? Mahima Siddhi means you become bigger than the biggest thing, right? Prakamya Siddhi. Any desire that you have, you can fulfill. Raise your hand if you've got desires to fulfill. Nobody's responsive, but I know what's in your heart. So this is the thing. In this way, there are 8 of them. And he wanted all of these also. You see, so actually we want all of these too. We do. We want, at least we want prakamya. We want that any desire we have is fulfilled. And actually, if somebody disciplines himself through yoga or through tapas, as Hiranyakashipu did, then you can actually get these things. But think very carefully about what you want, because you just might get it. And sometimes what you want is really not all that it's cracked up to be. Tamal Krishna Goswami used to say this. There are 3 things that can happen when we chase after our dreams in this material world. One is that you do not attain your dream, because your credit line is not sufficient in terms of karma. You just don't have the karma. Everybody wants to be a millionaire, but how many people actually become millionaires, you see? So you may not have the karma to get what you want. Or, what's even worse than that, you do have the karma to get what you want, but then you find out that it doesn't satisfy you. You see? That's almost even worse, because then you have to go looking for something else. Or, you get what you want, and you like what you want, but because everything in this material world is temporary, therefore it will eventually have to come to an end. Even if you get all of these benedictions, all of these 8 mystic siddhis, everything that Hiranyakashipu got, is all going to come to an end. And what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Adi anta vanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. The person who's smart, he says, doesn't take pleasure in things that have a beginning and an end. Think about it. What do you want in life? Does it have a beginning? Will it end? So where are you going to be when that happens? You're going to be right where you are now. This is the situation. Therefore, the intelligent person, he doesn't waste time, or she doesn't waste time trying to chase after these temporary phantasmagoria, Prabhupada said. Like a puppet show. All these fascinations that the material energy presents before us in life, and that absorb all of our attention and all of our efforts. Sometimes we step on people's toes to get what we want. We do nasty things to other people just to get ourselves ahead. Think about where this is actually leading. It's actually leading to where you are right now, because they're going to end. So what is the point in wasting time like this? An intelligent person actually instead tries to find out happiness that is not based on things that begin and end. Happiness that's eternal. And what kind of happiness is eternal? What does eternal mean? Spiritual. Spiritual. Spirit means eternal. This is how Krishna defines in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita what is the difference between things that are real and things that are illusory. If it has an end, it's not real. If it's eternal, then it's real. This is the test. You see? So an intelligent person, he goes for these things. And especially most of us are motivated in this world by love. This is really the most important thing. So what kind of love can we find that is not going to end someday, either with death or with divorce or with, sometimes it even ends in murder, right? Crimes of passion, as they say. So what kind of love is there that will not be subject to any kind of decay or end? That's spiritual love. So spiritual love means the relationship that we all have intrinsically, eternally, within our hearts, with that Supreme Lord. But it's kind of like Facebook. On Facebook, you get a friend request, and sometimes you push later. You see? So if you can do that, then the Supreme Lord is also like that. If we're not really so sincere, if we're not really that qualified, actually, he doesn't have to reveal himself to us. He says this in Bhagavad Gita, I don't have to show myself to anybody. I don't have to do anything. Remember, he doesn't have to go to the office. He doesn't have to reveal himself to anyone. He doesn't have to do anything. You see? So if we want to reawaken this dormant yet eternal relationship that we have with him, we have to purify our existence. And in this age, we do this very easily because, in case you haven't noticed, there's a lot of distractions in this age. We're very easily distracted, and even if we're not distracted, we don't have the greatest qualifications. We can't focus our mind for a long time. We can't really discipline our senses that well. If we see something that we like to eat, we usually go for it, you see, like this. So, to actually become qualified to make spiritual advancement, it does take some qualification. Just like if you want to get a degree in college, as I said, you have to undergo some austerity, you see. So, because we're living in a disadvantaged age, it's called Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and all kinds of inauspiciousness, things have been simplified for us. And it's stated in the ancient scriptures in Sanskrit, Kaler doshanit hirajan asti hi eko mahad gunaha kirtanadeva krishnasya muktavantha paramvrajeth. That means that although this age that we're living in is like an ocean of every conceivable flaw, there's one good quality, one saving grace, as we say, and that is that simply by chanting this Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, we not only become freed from all the ugliness and contamination that pulls us down, but we also get an inspiration and we get a footing in that higher realm that is the source of all inspiration and bliss. That's called Muktabandha Parambrajet. We get ultimately this pure love of Godhead, which is eternal. And we can reawaken our spiritual identity and the relationship of that identity with the Supreme simply through sound vibration. Anavritti Shabdat, Vedanta Sutra says, by sound. So this is a great science. It's called Bhakti Yoga, and the central practice in this science is this simple process. You don't have to know Sanskrit. You don't have to be a great yogi meditating for thousands of years like Hiranyakashipu did. All you have to do is sincerely and seriously try to focus your mind on this sound vibration, as we were doing a little while ago, and you can see for yourself the benefits. In Bhagavad Gita it's stated, pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. The very nature of this process is that you immediately and directly feel the results. Just like when you're eating. A little bit later we'll eat something. So nobody has to tell you when you're satisfied. Nobody has to tell you if you're still hungry or not. Nobody has to tell you if you're feeling strength from eating. You experience it directly. You see? That's called swanubhava, personal experience. So this is the nature of this science. It's very special in that way. And it's affected simply through this chanting of the Mahamantra. I'm going to stop here, but if anybody has any questions or any comments about anything we've said a lot of things. For those of you who are new, I hope that Sanskrit isn't throwing you off too much also, but I hope it's clear. Anyone, you have any comments also, or any questions, anything you want to add?
Well,
Yeah, please.
you say we're all children of God, and one might say, well, we're children of God, then, they're enjoying the material life now, maybe things are going right for them, and eventually they say, well, at some point I'll reach God consciousness, so I'll reach, to Vaikuntha or spiritual world, so let me enjoy right now. So maybe you can share something like...
Okay, so I think what you're saying then, what you're suggesting is that I will automatically evolve to God consciousness when the time is right. Is that what you're saying? There's some truth in that. Nobody in this room is applying that logic in their life, practically. Right? For the third time, I'll give the same example. When you go to college, when the time is right, I'll get a college degree. I'm not going to enroll. I'm not going to even think about the classes. I'm not going to buy the textbooks. It's just, when the time is right, it'll all just manifest, right? It doesn't work like that. You have to actually exercise some personal volition here. There's an old book of traditional wisdom called Hitopadesh. In that book, nice verses there. Nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mrigaha. That means that you cannot... A lion is the king of the jungle. We're speaking about at least half lions tonight. So, a lion, just because he's the king of the jungle, he cannot think that all I have to do is lie down in the path with my mouth wide open and all the deer are going to march in. It doesn't work like that. Even you're the king of the jungle, you still have to go out and do something. You've got to hustle, as they say. You see? That's called austerity. Lord Vishnu doesn't have to do that, because he's got everything automatic. Satya Kama, Satya Sankalpa. Whatever he determines within his mind, it's instant manifest fact. You see? And we're not, fortunately or unfortunately, we're not in that position. You see? Because we're servants. And a servant has to run around. What is the nice Sanskrit word we have for servant? Parichara. Parichara means he's running around. It's like we say in English, gopher. You see? The part and parcel living entity, the minute spiritual fragment of the Supreme, is by constitution also a servant. In the same way that any part of a machine is necessarily meant to make the whole machine work. You see? We should back up a little bit and look at ontological matters here. Just like you have, the ocean is a few miles away from us here. So the constituent elements of even a drop of ocean water, they're basically going to be the same as the entire ocean, you see? But it's a big difference in size. The spark of a bonfire and that bonfire itself, they're the same in quality. but the quantity is very different. A gold ornament in an earring, for example, and the gold in a vein of gold in the mountain, there's a big difference, you see? So in the same way, we are a small, small fragment of this spiritual awareness that's called Jivatma in Sanskrit. And in quality, we're the same as the Lord, and in that way we can say we're one with God, in quality only. But in quantity, he's much greater than us. Therefore, we have to run around and do things, and he doesn't. Because it's taken care of by his energies, and we're part of that energy. You see? So that position is already filled. There's no vacancy. You see? So in spiritual life also, as in all things, this is ordinary logic, we have to demonstrate some effort. Even as, back to Facebook again, because we're all familiar with Facebook. If you want to be somebody's friend, you've got to push the button, can I be your friend? Right? That you have to lift up your finger and make that much, expend that much energy, correct? You see? In spiritual life, it's the same way. Some commitment has to be there. Because it's an exchange. Paramatma is the Supreme Lord localized within the heart of every living being. And when he sees that we're actually serious about awakening this relation, or reawakening, I should say, this relationship, then he's going to start reciprocating. When we really want to make things happen and we expend some effort to demonstrate that desire, then he starts reciprocating. And that's part of the personal experience that I mentioned already, Swanubhava. When you chant this Mahamantra, for example, you're making a direct appeal. And that's a very powerful process. Once I was in Kmart. Do they still have Kmart here in California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some places.
Huh?
Some places, some places.
They renamed it maybe.
No, it's still
No,
Kmart.
Oh, it's still here? Okay. So once I was in Kmart, and because it was Kmart, I had trouble finding somebody who could help me. So I noticed what is the person's name on the name tag. So I called the salesperson's name. Instantly I had that person's complete attention. That is the power even of a mundane name. What to speak of the all-potent Supreme Personality of Godhead? You see? Just by calling his name in this way. These are the Mahamantra, in case you haven't figured it out, it's composed of names. Hari, Krishna, Rama. These are all names for the Supreme. When we sincerely call his name, then he reciprocates, but it has to be sincere. This is the point. I used to be in Seattle, and I used to speak to a lot of IT people there. So the analogy, or in Hyderabad, I just came from Hyderabad, so if you get into Mr. Sitka's office at Infosys, you have to be careful. What are you going to say once you're sitting there? You see? Once you call the Supreme Lord, then you'd better play your cards very carefully, you see? Because when you get into big man's office, you can make things, you can advance yourself very nicely, or you can mess yourself up depending on what you do, you see? So it's just like that. This is a long answer to your question. I hope it's adequate. Okay. Anybody else?
I
Yeah.
have a question, kind of going back to what you said before.
Uh-huh.
How you said that we have to put some effort into it. And is that kind of like, because I know a saying, but it's in Spanish, but it's kind of like, if you want like God to help you, you kind of have to put your part into it because he can't do anything for you in a way.
Well, he can do everything, but,
Yeah, but he just
this is
chooses.
love.
Yeah.
It's not robotics. I mean, it's a loving relationship, and anybody who, anyone who's married certainly knows it takes some expenditure of effort to stay in a relationship. It's not easy. You have to demonstrate. I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay, where's my new kitchen? Oh, well, that's, when God desires, it'll happen. It doesn't work like that. This is common sense, so I don't know how much more we need to say. Yeah.
When you said playing your cards and say you have to be wise about what you said, and you said you could either go up or down, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's like this. If we commit an offense, this is the thing. Let's say this. I call some big man's name. I've got his attention, or I'm in his office, better yet. Then if I start like looking around at his desk and checking out his bookshelf and just basically ignoring him, what's going to happen? He's going to call security. I got a weird one here. Right?
So what you're saying is,
And then you had a great opportunity and you blew it because you didn't recognize, you see. So if that's the case, even here on the relative scale in the mundane realm, imagine when we're talking about absolute realm with the supreme person. He's called Purushottama in Bhagavad Gita. It means the supreme person. We have to be very careful. So that's all. It's a simple process. We just have to call him sincerely and seriously, but it has to be real. You see? Is that?
yeah.
Yeah, it's clear, I think. Anybody else? Yes.
You were telling the story of this great personality, Hiranyakashipu, who was a big demon, and he wanted to terrorize the whole universe. He wanted to control everyone. So
But of course, he didn't see it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an important point.
So my question is, we human beings here, I might think, well, I'm a good person. Actually, I haven't killed anyone yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't killed anyone. I haven't stolen. I haven't done this, and that thing, and that. So I'm actually good. I'm okay. I'm cool. When I die, maybe something good might happen to me. So, what makes actually someone really like a demon? Many people don't like this word being said, demoniac, or he's a demon. So what makes someone really demon, or what level can we say that we're actually in that mentality too, but in a small scale?
It's an excellent question, and apparently Krishna considers that it's also a very relevant question because he devotes a whole chapter to it in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita, he's talking about these two qualities, the divine qualities and the demoniac qualities. He spends 3 verses talking about the divine qualities, and he spends 17 verses talking about the demoniac qualities. So since you're asking what is it that defines a demon, let me just speak with some authority here from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Dambho Darapo Abhimanascha Krodha Parashyamevacha Ajnanam Chadhijatasya Partha Sampadam Asurim. Those who are qualified to be born as demons, Krishna says, they have these characteristics. Dambha, what does dambha mean? Pride. Darpa means self-absorption. Okay? Therefore, a mirror is called Darpana. Yeah. So, Abhimana also means ego, big head. Krodha, they get angered easily. Parashya, they're very harsh in their speech sometimes. You see? Ajnanam, they're unaware of their situation or unaware of the significance of or they're ignorant. You see? These are at least 5 things that he mentions here. And then there's more later on, of course. He's talking, at some length here. You want to hear more?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 more. Pravritin Chan.
Yeah. So, okay, see. Pravritim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasuraha na shaucham napi chacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. They don't know what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. This is a characteristic of today's world, especially. People are so confused about what to do and what not to do. They don't have any cleanliness. They're not truthful. They say that there's no basis to this existence. It's unreal. The world is unreal. This is another thing we hear often. They say there's no cause, or if there is any cause, it's just lust or just whim. This is what they say. In this way, they are destroyed to themselves, and their intelligence is lost. They are engaged in activities which are very pungent and generally result in destruction, whether it's intentional or not. That's called Ugra karma. Where else do we? want to say here. They take shelter of lust, and they're intoxicated by pride and by self-absorption. Out of illusion, they are accepting only impermanent things to be as if they were going to be here forever. They're completely attached in that way. What else? They're sworn to unclean ideals and works. They're constantly absorbed in so many worries. Chintam. Chinta means worry. Anyway. Pralantam upashata. Kamopabhoga parama yatavati nishtita. All they know is that I'm supposed to fulfill my desires and be happy. That's their whole conception of the significance of life. These are the things that he's characterizing as demoniac qualities. Then he goes on. Asha pasha shatayar baddha. They're bound, as if bound to hundreds and thousands of aspirations, which can never really be fulfilled. There's just too many of them. Kama krodha parayana. And because they are absorbed in their desires, when those desires are frustrated, what happens? Krodha. They become angry. Because anger is nothing but frustrated desire. People who get angry, that you should recognize. There's a continuum here. First, you contemplate something too much. By going over something in your mind too much, you develop a mental attachment. On the basis of that mental attachment, you try for that thing. When you try for that thing, and one of those three options that I mentioned already happens, either you don't get it, or you get it and lose it, or you get it and it doesn't satisfy, then you get frustrated. And anger is just an extreme form of frustration, you see. And when you're angry, you lose your intelligence altogether. When you've given yourself to lust and fall into anger and become bewildered in intelligence, where do you think you're going? Are you going up? No, it's going down. This is the path. And he says, sometimes they may even perform some sacrifice or some religious ritual, but why are they doing it? They want to make sure that they get some announcement made, that there's a plaque in their name on the wall. They're doing it for some ostentation, you see. They're ostentatious, or they want some prestige or something from it. Sometimes they calculate, I've wiped out this guy, so now the only one left in my way is this other one. So I have to go after him now, or her, as the case may be, you see. As I said, sometimes we screw other people to get what we want. This is the problem. So, asha pasha shatar baddha. Idam adya maya labdham imam prapsi manoratham. I've already accumulated so